London, January 1942, 3 in the morning. The siren has been going for 40 minutes, not the first tonight. The sound moves through the walls of every house on the street, through blankets and closed eyes and the particular exhaustion of people who have not slept a full night since September 1940. The air smells of cold and brick dust, and something faintly chemical that no one has found a name for yet. No all clear has sounded, only the waiting continues. A woman sits on a wooden bench along the wall of an Anderson shelter at the bottom of her garden. The shelter is half underground, corrugated iron arched over a pit dug by hand the previous autumn. The floor is damp earth covered with a square of oilcloth. Two children sleep on the narrow bunk opposite her, their bodies curved toward each other under a wool blanket. She is not sleeping. She is listening. Her hands rest in her lap, one holding the other. She is wearing her coat over her nightclothes and rubber boots on her feet, because by now she keeps them beside the shelter entrance and puts them on before she thinks about anything else. This sequence, boots first, everything else after, was established in the first week of the Blitz and has not changed. She listens to the sound above. The drone of engines is different from the sound of anti-aircraft fire, which is different again from the sound of a bomb falling nearby, which she has learned to distinguish from one falling at a safer distance. These distinctions are not studied. They are absorbed, the way a sailor absorbs the difference between waves. The children do not wake. They have learned to sleep through the siren, though they wake immediately at certain other sounds, the ones she has learned not to describe to them. Between September 1940 and May 1941, London was bombed on 76 consecutive nights. By 1942, the raids are less constant but not finished. The city has rearranged itself around the fact of bombing, the way a body rearranges itself around an injury, compensating, adapting, continuing to function through routes it did not previously use. She knows which streets to avoid on the way to the market, because the rubble has not yet been cleared. She knows which shop still has tinned sardines on Tuesdays. She knows the faces of the women at the rest center 2 streets over, the ones who lost their houses in November and have been living on folding cots ever since. She nods to them when she passes. They nod back. The all-clear sounds at 4:17. She notes the time by the watch on her wrist, her husband's watch, kept wound and accurate because accuracy still matters, perhaps matters more now than before. She does not go back inside immediately. She stands at the shelter entrance and looks at the sky. Searchlights are still moving slowly across the cloud cover, crossing and uncrossing like slow, pale scissors. No fires visible from here. That is something. Morning begins at 6, because the children must be at school by 8:30, and school continues regardless. This was decided early and has not been reconsidered. The decision to continue school was not made from optimism. It was made because the alternative, children at home, routines dissolved, days without structure, costs something that cannot be recovered easily. She understands this without having articulated it. Breakfast is porridge, made with water and a small amount of milk from the weekly ration. The children eat without complaint. They have been eating wartime food for long enough that they do not remember what pre-war breakfast tasted like in detail, only in impression. Something richer, something warmer. She checks the ration books before leaving the house. Meat, bacon, sugar, butter. Each allocation marked and calculated against the week remaining. The mathematics of wartime rationing has become as automatic as breathing. She does not resent it. She manages it. The walk to school passes 3 bomb sites. The children have stopped looking at them. She has not. She looks each time, noting what has changed, whether the clearance crews have been, whether anything has shifted. This is not morbidity. It is information. The day continues in its adapted shape. The queue at the butcher, the exchange of information with other women in the queue, which warden is reliable, whether the rumor about the factory on Bethnal Green Road is true, how Mrs. Patterson on the corner is managing since her windows went. Information moves through these queues the way it moves through all small communities under pressure. Quietly, precisely, stripped of everything unnecessary. At the rest center in the afternoon, she volunteers 2 hours. She has done this every Tuesday since October. She carries tea in large metal urns, sets out chairs, listens when people need to speak, moves on when they do not. The work requires less sympathy than steadiness. Steadiness she has. The women at the folding cots have a particular way of sitting, upright, coats on, bags within reach. Ready. This readiness is not anxiety. It is the posture of people who have learned that the interval between ordinary and emergency can be very short, and who have decided to stay prepared rather than be surprised. Evening comes early in January. Blackout curtains are drawn before 4 o'clock, the house sealed against any light that might be visible from above. Inside, the rooms feel smaller after blackout, not because anything has changed in the dimensions, but because the darkness outside presses the household inward, into itself. Supper is simple. A small amount of meat stretched with vegetables, bread and margarine, tea. The children do their schoolwork at the kitchen table under the overhead light. She sits nearby with mending. The radio is on low, not for news, which she has already heard twice today, but for the sound of voices in the room, the sense that the house is connected to something larger than itself. At 9, the children go to bed. They put their shoes at the side of the bed, not under it. Coats within reach. This too has become automatic. She sits for a while in the kitchen after they have gone up. The house is quiet. Outside, the street is dark and silent and impossible to read. She cannot know what tonight will bring. She has stopped trying to know and started trying only to be ready. In London in 1942, survival was organized around the space between sirens. The meals cooked in that space, the sleep attempted in that space. The work done, the children taught, the mending finished, the tea made and drunk, and the cup washed and set back on the shelf. All of it fitted into the intervals carefully, without waste. The kettle is filled for morning and set on the stove. The boots are placed beside the back door. She turns off the kitchen light and goes upstairs in the dark, one hand on the wall, moving without hesitation through a house she knows by touch.